Hey y'all, welcome to Diverse Reads for Deeper Needs, where we explore how literature helps us create classrooms and communities where every learner is seen, valued, and affirmed. Episode 1: Names as Narratives: Power in Pronunciation, Pride, and Place. With diverse reads for deeper needs, stories become mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Together, we will explore children's literature that nurtures emotional intelligence, celebrates our diverse voices, and inspires understanding, connection, and growth. We always honor Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, Mirrors, Windows, and Sliding Glass Doors. With mirrors, learners see their identities, cultures, languages, and stories reflected and affirmed. With windows, learners gain insight into the names, traditions, and experiences of others. And with sliding glass doors, learners are invited to step into empathy, curiosity, and connection by learning the stories that our names carry. In this episode, we will explore how names shape identity through pronunciation, by respecting names and saying them correctly, pride, by celebrating the stories, cultures, and identities connected to the names, and place, understanding that every name has roots, history, and a community from which it comes. Names are often the first expression of identity we encounter and one of the first opportunities we have to communicate belonging. Names are more than just labels, they carry history, family, language, culture, memory, and story. They often represent generations of identity, connection, and belonging. So, for many learners, their name is the first part of themselves they offer us, and our response to it may become one of the first lessons they learn about whether they belong in our classroom. For many educators, chrysanthemum has long been a favorite for discussing teasing, self esteem, and appreciating what makes each of us unique. The story beautifully reminds readers that our names are special and worthy of respect. However, this episode explores something slightly different. Our focus isn't simply on liking our names, it's on understanding that names are deeply connected to the identity, culture, heritage, language, and belonging. These perspectives have become increasingly important as our classrooms have grown more linguistically and culturally diverse. So, what story does a name carry? What culture does it represent? And what happens when people repeatedly mispronounce or shorten a student's name? How does learning someone else's name communicate a sense of belonging? Chrysanthemum helps us appreciate that our names matter. But the stories that we're going to view shortly help us understand why they matter. And together, that reminds us that every name carries a story worth learning. Power in pronunciation. Names hold power because names communicate value. The decision to learn a learner's name says that you are worth the effort. And students rarely expect perfection. What they do notice is whether you care enough to learn their name. A correctly pronounced name communicates something larger than accuracy. It communicates recognition, respect, effort, dignity, and value. Because pronunciation is rarely about pronunciation, it's more about identity and belonging. Think about a time when someone made an effort to say your name correctly. How did it affect you? How can you show respect for others through learning and practicing their names? Every name deserves to be learned. And these stories are going to focus on the importance of saying names correctly and the message that our effort communicates. Your name is a song. After classmates and her teacher struggle to pronounce her name, a young girl learns that every name has its own rhythm, history, and beauty. Empowered by her mother, she helps others learn the melody of her name. This story beautifully illustrates that learning to pronounce someone's name is an act of respect, recognition, and belonging. My name is Sanjel. As a refugee from Sudan, Sanjel worries that no one can pronounce his name. He creatively teaches classmates how to say it correctly without changing who he is. This shows that educators and classmates can honor identity by learning, not by changing someone's name. Always Anjali, when Anjali is encouraged to use a nickname instead of her full name, she respectfully insists that people learn to say her real name. This demonstrates that every learner deserves the dignity of hearing their own name spoken correctly. Say my name. Through lyrical text, children from diverse cultural backgrounds share the histories, meanings, and beauty of their names. The story emphasizes that names carry generations of hopes, traditions, and identity, and that saying someone's name correctly is an act of honor and respect. There's a pronunciation guide at the end that encourages readers to learn each name thoughtfully. Power in pride, honor, heritage, and humanity. Names often carry stories long before we tell our own. For some learners, a name represents grandparents, ancestors, migration stories, faith traditions, languages, hopes, and generations of identity. Names carry meaning that extend far beyond pronunciation. They reflect families, cultures, histories, languages, and stories. For some learners, a name represents generations of heritage and identity. For others, it reflects aspirations, traditions, and the hopes of those who came before them. When educators honor names, they honor the humanity attached to them. As Gloria Lanson Billings and Geneva Gay remind us, culturally responsive teaching begins with recognizing and affirming the identities students bring with them into our classrooms. When educators intentionally learn to use students' names correctly, they communicate that identity is something to honor rather than something to simplify. Identity affirmation is not separate from instruction. It creates the conditions that make the instruction possible. Every name carries a story, and these books celebrate names as expressions of family, heritage, language, and culture. Alma and how she got her name. Alma discovers that every part of her long name honors someone in her family, revealing generations of stories, love, and tradition. This story demonstrates that names preserve family history and cultural identity. My name is a story, Ashanti. A young girl becomes frustrated when classmates and others struggle to pronounce or appreciate her unique name. Through a heartfelt conversation with her mother, she learns that her name is more than just a word. It carries history, purpose, love, and the dreams that her family has for her. She comes to embrace her name with confidence and pride, realizing it tells the story of who she is. The Arabic quilt. Kanzi proudly shares her Arabic language and traditions through a classroom quilt project after initially feeling different. This story celebrates language, heritage, and the cultural pride connected to names. Renee has two last names. Renee explains why he has two last names, introducing classmates to Hispanic naming traditions. This story encourages appreciation for diverse cultural naming practices. Power in place. Place, presence, and possibility. Names connect us to places, and sometimes those places are countries, neighborhoods, tribes, faith communities, languages, and family histories. Students carry those places into our classrooms every day. Educational relationships rarely begin with curriculum, they begin with connection. Research consistently demonstrates that belonging influences engagement, motivation, persistence, and achievement. Belonging is rather rarely established through More often, it is built through small moments repeated consistently over time. And sometimes belonging begins with a name. Relationships often begin with ordinary moments: a greeting at the door, a remembered interest, a follow up question, and a correctly pronounced name. Relationships begin with recognition, and recognition often begins with a name. With place, every name belongs here. These stories remind us that belonging begins when learners can bring their full identities into our classrooms and communities. My name is Yoon. After moving from Korea to America, Yoon learns she doesn't have to choose between her cultures as she finds her place in a new school. This demonstrates that belonging doesn't require leaving your identity behind. Nibi's Water Song. Through indigenous teachings about water, language, and community, Nibi learns that identity is rooted in relationships with both people and place. This story connects names, language, land, and belonging. The name jar. After moving from Korea, this little girl considers choosing an American name until classmates show interest in learning her Korean name instead. This story highlights how making the effort to learn someone's name communicates acceptance and care. My name is Bilal. Bilal. Bilal struggles with whether to hide his Muslim identity, but eventually gains confidence in introducing himself by his given name. This story encourages learners to embrace their names while inviting others to learn them with respect. So perhaps the question is not, can I pronounce every name perfectly? Perhaps the question is, have I shown every learner that they are worth learning? Before we ask students to learn from us, we have an opportunity to show them that we are willing to learn from them. So learn their names. Learn to say them as if they matter, because they do. Sometimes the first lesson we teach is not found in the standard, in the textbook, or in the lesson plan. It begins with the name. What are you reading? Please share in the comments or email us at impactfulmeasures@gmail.com. This is a live QR code that takes you to our website. These are our email addresses: Gmail and Outlook. Please follow us on the following social media platforms: LinkedIn, Substack, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you for supporting us. We'll see you for episode 2.